What's going on, guys? We're going to be returning to one of my favorite indies with Monster Island in Return to Monster Island. And this is written and illustrated by Graham Nolan. He does the whole thing with Compass Comics, that's his brand. And I like a lot of what's over there. Joe Frankenstein is still likely my number one. But Monster Island is right up there with it. And I really like our two main protagonists. We have Duke over here and Mac. And I really enjoyed the first one. The second one I also very much enjoy. Though I think I have a little bit more issue with it. But still, very, very, very solid entry. And let's just get right on into it and see what's what. So again, illustrated, written by Graham Nolan. And our story is going to kick off. This is a dream sequence, and I'm just going to let that be known right off the bat. This is Duke's dream, and basically what he's doing is just kind of recapping everything to these two members of the Navy, letting them know like all about Monster Island and stuff like that. And then after a little bit, these two start to want to know more about the princess from the first one, who Duke had a little bit of an interest in before he and Mac got together by the end of it. And then, he's just going on like, oh yeah, she was built like a brick house and stuff like that. And they're getting more excited about it when finally Mac snaps Duke out of his dream. And over here we learn that it's been 2 years since their adventures at Monster Island and stuff like that. And she says, it's been 2 years and you still can't stop dreaming about the princess. What the hell? And this goes over to her going, well, what about us? It's been 2 years and we've been together, and is there marriage on the horizon? What's going on? And, she just wants to know, is there something going on here, or should bygones be bygones? And as we see, he's not wanting to really commit. He just wants to kind of keep things the way they are. She's not thrilled about this. Clocks him in the head with her bag and starts to move on and says, "You know what? We're done. We're over. I need something more than just what we have here. And if you're not going to give it to me, I'll seek it elsewhere." But just then, what looks to be a Black Hawk helicopter comes down and tells the two to get in. They're needed for something very urgent. And so what we learn is Monster Island, or what appears to be Monster Island, is now back in the world. It's reappeared, only this time it's like floating above the world, and because of where it's located, it's picked up by both the U.S. and likely Russia. And so it's a race to go see what's going on. Why are the Gooch here? What do they need? And also, we just need to keep all of their information and secrets out of the hands of the Russians. And so, because of their familiarity, they're the ones picked for this job. Because they know both the layout of Monster Island and have friendly ties with the Gooch there. So like it or not, Mac is paired back up with Duke, and so they just can't get away from one another. And they need to return to Monster Island. Dun, dun, dun. And so it's not going to just be them going there. There is going to be a crew, and we meet a guy over here named Dan. Dan's hitting on Mac. Duke's not taking too kindly, and because of this, Mac's just laying it on a little thick. She's definitely enjoying the attention Dan's giving and how it is pissing off Duke quite a bit. So they all make it out to Monster Island, and yep, sure enough, the Russians are there as well. Nice little dogfight ensues, but then another contender enters, and we have a big-ass monster, and everybody is getting wiped out, including poor Dan. Dan saves Mac and Duke, and for his troubles, the monster wipes him off the face of the planet. And so everybody's getting hit. The Russians manage to shoot down Mac and Duke. They parachute down to the island. And then they get away from the monster, but get caught up in that magnetic force field that shuts down everything. Now, it looks like Graham did kind of correct something here because they are not able to eject. In the first one, that was something I had issue with. I'm like, well, if all the electronics are knocked out like it's an EMP or something, they shouldn't be able to eject. And the Russians are not. They have to land their aircraft to the best of their abilities. The two swim over to the rock, and our Russians are, I'm going to probably butcher their name, but we're going to roll with it. It's Vitaly and Sergey, and they swim over to the rock just in time to see that some monster has popped up out of the water there. But also, that rock is not a rock. It is also a monster. And so these monsters just start having a big old fist fight and doing what they do best. And this is Vitaly, this is Sergey. They look at one another and then they fuck right off. They're like, nope, I ain't got time for this. Bye-bye. They start wandering around in the jungle before Duke puts a pistol right to Sergey's head. And Mac and Duke thank the Russians for managing to somehow shoot them out of the air, even though there's a big fuck-off monster there. And they respond in English, and we realize, oh, okay, you guys can speak English. Although Sergey, not to the greatest of abilities, and it does make for some sillier moments within here. And basically, Mac and Duke said, okay, well, look, we need to make our way to the control center where the Gooch is and try to sort things out. You guys need to come with us, and we just need to work together if we're to survive just to get there. And the Russians are like, well, we're the superior officer, so we'll take charge. And Mac and Duke are like, well, we're the ones with the guns, so we'll take charge. So they go off, and there is a slight issue here. This dialogue bubble looks like it's coming from Duke, but because of our dialogue and how good the English is, this is coming from Vitaly, who is our better English-speaking Russian. But Mac is kind of informing them as to what to expect with Monster Island as a whole, how they were talking about the monsters that the two Russians encountered and that they had names, and she knows this because of her time spent with the Gooch and how they're cataloging everything and things like that. And both parties are kind of like talking softly to one another, kind of letting them know, hey, got to keep our eye on those two over there. So the Russians are doing that, and of course Mac and Duke are doing that as well. And then Sergey sees a cave, and he wants to take a little restroom break. And I'm just like, dude, you don't do that just in normal circumstances, just wander in some strange cave, just without it being on a monster island. And plus, you're a man. The world is your urinal, man. Just turn your back if you don't want anybody seeing, and just take a piss. You can hang out in the back of it. It's just you four. You can hang out back there, whip it out, take a piss, bring it back in, and just go about your day. You don't need to go off to a cave. What the hell's the matter with you? And sure enough, there was a monster in there that didn't take kindly to Sergey pissing all over his home. So we find that this monster is named Brute, and Brute is quite pissed off. He picks up boulders, he's throwing it, he's smashing things, and this makes the group have to split up into pairs. So we have Duke and Vitaly going off, and Mac and Sergey are going off into two different directions. Duke manages to catch the monster's attention and draw his ire towards them, so Mac can get away with Sergey. And so there he goes. They decide to lose his, throw off the scent by jumping in the water. And unfortunately, they're making too much noise, so Brute still manages to catch up with them. And they fire their guns at him. And this is enough to kind of scare him off. And Duke's making mention. I was like, oh yeah, it's a good thing he got thrown off by our gunfire. He's like, wait, what the fuck? And like, so were you ever going to tell me that you were armed? And he's like, Vitaly's like, you assumed. I'm not going to correct you, and I didn't think it was really that important to tell you. And so Duke's like, well, I think it's fair to assume that Sergei is also armed, and sure enough, we do see that Mac has managed to disarm Sergei, and we have a little star while he's laying on the ground, so it kind of looks like he got knocked in the head. We don't see the circumstances that led up to that, and that's fine. We just see that Mac was able to disarm him, but we see that she's like, we need to trust one another, hands him back the gun. You know, we got to rely on one another just to stay alive, so we can't be fighting amongst ourselves. And just then they hear a noise, and the noise is Boo. And we see a little critter running around, and it's over in the tree, and then they spot it. And it's got like those little Puss in Boots eyes going on there. And Mac, you know, she just melts at it. She's like, oh, goodness, you know, fucking women. Of course, they just melt when they see the big soft eyes. And, you know, Boo goes running over. Oh, well, what she ends up calling Boo, because that's all it says, goes running over. And luckily for Mac, she doesn't get her face clawed out for her trouble. So yeah, she calls it Boo, and then we see what it's running from, and we got all these lizards, or as Sergei calls them, liz turds. And we're going to take a break and take a look what Duke and Vitaly are looking at. They got to the control center. They see that it's been hit with some sort of graffiti, and they're like, okay, well, how do we get over there? And big monster comes in and starts beating on the control center, gets zapped for his troubles. He tries it again, gets zapped again, comes back, zap, zap, zap. And yeah, you know, it's very fortunate that that monster chose at that particular moment to go ahead and get zapped and let him know that there's a force field there. After our monster over here has tired of his shock therapy, we see Duke and Vitaly. They're trying to wave to the Gooch and let him know, hey, you know, we're here. Lower the force field down so we can come and talk with you. And they get shot at, and they're like, what the hell? I thought we were all friends. And then we see in the inside there a couple silhouettes, and that is not the Gooch. So something crazy's going on here. Meanwhile, we come back over with Mac and Sergei, and we see that the lizards are not exactly the friendliest, and we see them getting shot at. Now, I want to point something out. We see them getting hit. All these lizards, they're getting hit multiple times, but we never see carcasses, ever. So, I would think that is implying that these guys have got some pretty tough skin. You know, definitely immune to at least low caliber bullets, and that causes everybody to run out. So these two are without bullets now and have to resort to sticks. Now, that's really unfortunate because now to some of those bigger monsters, they got fuck all to work with. They can't even use it for noise like Duke did with the with Brute there. So, I mean, it is what it is. They were attacked. They're panicking. You know, you got to do what you got to do. You didn't have time to react for a stick. I'm not saying that it's a flaw by any means. I'm just saying very unfortunate for their circumstances. Everything lines up, though. And then the lizards start to back off, and we realize that they have some sort of, like, hypnotizing spell. And, yeah, both Mac and Sergei fall under this and are still as the lizards start to close in before they start getting shot at. And we see Rooster and AWOL. We met them in the previous issue, and for those who don't know, AWOL over here, he is one of the Gooch. So that's what they look like. So when we saw that silhouette a couple of pages ago, yeah, we definitely know that this is not the same kind of creatures. So little happy reunion going on, and they realize the princess and Big Jake are not part of this party, and so they ask, like, hey, what's going on? We find out that there is a happy ending with those two, that they ended up going back to the princess's homeworld, and even despite her father's wishes, they ended up getting married. So all is ended well with those two, and that's good. So they go over, they get Duke and Vitaly, and another happy reunion. And then AWOL lets us know what happens, that the Gooch decided to kind of sublet out some security. They find this race that was called the Anarchons, or Anarchons. They work for cheap. They seem to be a good fit for everything. Well, they are actually part of a fringe group called CETA, Creatures for the Ethical Treatment of Aliens. Yeah, I wonder what we're kind of spoofing off of here. But needless to say, they take over. The Gooch are kind of a timid bunch, so it doesn't take much to take over them. They're very cowardly, and send them out into the jungle, and that's been that. And their plan is to let loose the whole island upon whatever planet they're inhabiting, and let them loose. And Duke's like, okay, so why Earth? And AWOL says, well, actually, Earth was my doing. I put in the coordinates and set a course here because we needed your help. And before we got kicked out, I made sure to at least put us over here so we could get some help. Because, after all, they are a cowardly bunch and cannot retake what was taken from them. However, this is coming down to Earth, and when it comes down, that force field will come down with it, and everything will be set roaming free. And they got about an hour to do all of this. They need the access codes to undo the damage. Retaking it's not going to be the problem, they think, with the gunfire and just the superior technology over what the Anarchons have. They'll be able to do that just fine. It's just trying to get the access codes from them to undo all of this. So they make their way to a secret entrance that's hidden, and wouldn't you know it, there's a big fuck-off monster sitting right there. And just want to make a quick note of the Russians. They're kind of plotting, always kind of sneaking around and talking. And Duke kind of calls him out a little bit there. He's like, hey, make sure you're speaking English over there. We want to hear you. So Duke has a plan to get the monster out of the way. Just throw some fucking rocks at it. And just kind of hide while it wakes up and, decides to leave on its own. Nobody else has a better idea, so that's the plan that they go with. They're tossing rocks at it, and son of a bitch, there's some hypnosaurs, those lizards from earlier, all around this monster. And so that forces everybody to run, because they're awake. So they make their way to the water, because these lizards cannot swim. So they lose them in the water. But then they get stuck, and nobody can move over here. Well, that is because of this monster over here called Gloop. Gloop gets up. He's all like, some tasty treats have entered. Start making his way over there, but then something sneaks up behind him. And that is the big blue monster named Horndog, who decides he needs a fight after somebody threw rocks. He's like, you know what, Gloop, it's time to fight you. So punches Gloop right in the face. Gloop's able to kind of recompile himself, and the fight continues. And we don't get to see who wins, because it really doesn't matter. They take the opportunity to sneak away, get in. There is a lizard right here. We just want to make note of that. He does end up following. Spoilers for the end there. But if I didn't make note of it, we might actually forget about him by the end. So they make their way in. We see the Russians. They're pretty enamored with everything around. See some escape pods and all sorts of just crazy alien tech. And again, little taps from the Russians, like, hey, 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 look, look, look. And they make their way from the floor, and there's the Anarchons, whatever. And Duke lets out a big ol' warning shot, and, he has the drop on him. These guys are quick to go ahead and give up power. They said, you know what, you can have control of the island, except the access codes. Fuck off! And they run out and start hugging the trees and, basically taunting them, saying, our plans will not be thwarted. These animals, they need to be freed and yada, yada, yada. All the hippy-dippy stuff. And while this is all going on, one of the monsters sneaks up on the guy that's the loudest and decides to have himself a little snack. And the rest of this crew sees this, gets scared shitless, and decides to run on back, and they're giving out the passcode. Gooch is able to undo everything. Rooster takes them into custody. And now they got about 10 minutes to get off the island before the island, disappears and relocates itself like we've seen it do before. Duke is ready to go. Mac's like, well, okay, first, where are the Russians? But most importantly, where's Boo? We need to find Boo. And Duke's like, we got 10 minutes. If that, we need to go. And Mac's like, I'm not going to do this, until I know Boo is safe. It's about loyalty. And Duke's like, I'm loyal to the Navy and to home. I want to see him again. Stay if you want, but I'm out. We do see that the Russians did take an escape pod. They have some alien tech, and they've gone. They're out. Mac goes running out and seeing, if she can go locate Boo. Just run around. Here's Boo. And it looks like Boo has found what appears to be the father, I don't know, but we do have more masculine tones here. Like a little beard thing going on, hairy arms. I mean, this still could be the mom. I don't know, but a parent of some sort, Boo's safe. Mac's very relieved, but then she's remembering, yeah, I'm kind of stuck here now, aren't I? She starts sobbing. She's all alone now on the island. It's going to go wherever, and there's nothing she can do about it. And Duke's like, well, I wouldn't exactly say that you're alone. And Duke is, he's like, I'm so sorry I've been so blind lately. You're the most important thing to me. I'm so sorry I've been such a lunkhead lately. And then we have like the little Leia Han Solo thing from Empire. She says, I love you. He's like, I know. And he goes on to say, no matter what the future holds, we're going to face it together. And then they disappear, and we catch back up with the Russians. They've crashed in Russia, and we find out over here that all they stole was a coffee machine, so nothing really important. They go waving down their comrades like, hey, we have some alien tech, come over here. We're ready to be worshipped like heroes. But the bummer is they're actually in Alaska. So it's like, oh, okay, well, thanks, guys. So they get taken into custody and everything handed over. And then our little Hypnosaur comes on out and takes a look at the audience and puts a little spell on us and lets us know that we will be back for Escape from Monster Island. And that's where we end. And yeah, certainly, I was definitely back for Escape from Monster Island. But yeah, a good, I don't know, 8 to 9 out of 10 book. This is fantastic. My biggest issue with it is just splitting up Mac and Duke to begin with. I never like that kind of stuff. In the first one, they finally get together, and then the first thing that we get in this book is they're split back up only to get back together at the end. So it was just like, okay, we just kind of reset it all for reasons. And it really was just like, throughout the rest of the story, there really wasn't much. If the beginning didn't tell you that they were split up, you wouldn't know any better. So we just did it just because we needed the extra drama. Not a big fan of that. Now, it doesn't really play that much of an effect on the rest of the story. Basically all we really got out of it was Mac was a little bit more flirty with Dan. Now, you could have easily just had them had a fight, and she could have still been as flirty. It's not like they got into a real relationship. She was just kind of laying it on and making Duke a little jealous. So, but again, that's more of a nitpick. That's just more of a me thing. I just don't like that kind of stuff. Because I like these characters and I want them to do good. So to split them up just kind of is like, okay, for what? One of the things that I can relate to movie-wise that do the same thing that also pissed me off is like Jurassic Park, right? Grant and Sattler get together by the end of the movie, but then the next time we see them is Jurassic Park 3, and they're split up, and even Sattler has a different family and a different husband. I'm just like, wow, that fucking sucks. So it's never fun to see that, and I would prefer that it had been a fight of some sort, because it could have all played out the same way regardless. And it's because nothing would change one way or the other that I'm going to call that just more of a nitpick. But those kind of things just, they bother me a little bit. I will say that though we fixed the issue of having the electronics not allow the eject to work, I do think that then provides a continuity error with the first one, because it's like, okay, well, it worked in one but not in the other. So it's one of those things, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't kind of thing. Personally, I'm glad that it at least got fixed. Maybe in the first one, you can just headcanon that as a weird anomaly. They managed to get lucky there. So I'm just glad that we fixed that one for this. So overall, very satisfied with everything that's going on. Again, I've already read Escape from Monster Island. I very much recommend this trilogy so far. Graham Nolan's got great things over there at Compass Comics. I recommend everybody go check it out. Now, my personal favorite is still Joe Frankenstein, but Monster Island is a very close second. I love Monster Island. I love these characters. And for any also interested, check out Ghost of Matacumba Key. I've already got a review on that. We do see that Mac and Duke are in there. We see that Joe Frankenstein and crew are also in there. So definitely some good stuff going on there. Very, very much recommend Monster Island as well as everything else that he's got going on. So if this sounds like something that would interest you, check the link in the description where you can get a copy for yourself, or at least 2 to follow should second chance campaigns arise. But that is all I have for today, guys. So until next time, take care and God bless.